Hi folks, it's John again. I had such a good response from my last video that I decided I would do a sequel to it. Remember, the last one was about John stranded on the Isle of Patmos, seemingly abandoned after having lived such an exciting life serving the Lord. Now he's cast away on an island and everything looks so gloomy. And so many people wrote to me that I decided I must do another one. The conclusion, of course, of the last one was that the Lord never abandons us. But there is one thing I'd like to emphasize today, and that's our side of the bargain. That we have to learn to be stickers at the job. In South Yorkshire, where I was brought up, we used to have a saying, and that saying was, lad, you're a sooner." The meaning of that expression was that we were saying to someone, you would sooner give up than to go on. And so we used to say to them, lad, you're a sooner, meaning that you'd rather quit than go on, rather sit down than get up, rather do nothing than do something that might solve a problem. And the problem of today's Christians in the Western world is that they quit far too easily. They give up instead of pressing onwards. I just want to read a statement from the book of James, which says this, and I'm reading from James chapter 1 verses 2 to 8. "Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. But when he asks, he must believe and not doubt, because he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That man should not think he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all he does." What James here really is talking about is those who quit, those who don't stick it out. We're not always walking in the victory, we're not always shouting triumphantly. Sometimes we go through some very difficult times. But faith is to stick it out regardless. The very first thing I learned as a young Christian was to learn how to have stickability, how to go on, to press through, how not to give up. I always remember one of the first lessons the Lord taught me was, never stop doing what you're doing until he says to stop. The only time we can ever stop doing what he has given us to do is when he says stop. As a young Christian, I went through some horrendous difficulties. Things happened that, wow, I would never have believed could have happened. And many times I thought, well, is this what happens to a Christian? Surely this isn't what we should be experiencing. But somehow, even though I had doubts about my circumstances and some of the fiery trials that came my way, somehow I had the presence of mind to stick it out and to keep going on, just like John did when he finished up on the Isle of Patmos. When I was a young boy in South Yorkshire, I was a bit of a rough lad. And it was generally believed and said by our neighbours where I lived, they used to say, "Your John will finish up in prison." Well, in 1987 that prediction came true and I finished up in prison. However, I did not finish up as a prisoner or as a criminal in prison, but I went as a chaplain to Her Majesty the Queen. What brought about the difference? What changes came into my life that turned me from a would-be criminal into a chaplain to Her Majesty the Queen? Well, I want to tell you the change, the difference was made by Jesus Christ. He came into my life and he turned me around. And because of him, that prediction did come true, but in an entirely different way. Isn't that wonderful, folks, what Jesus Christ can do for us? You know, when I became a Christian at the age of 19, the Lord didn't change everything in me in one foul sweep, in one go. He didn't. It wouldn't have been possible to have changed me from the kind of life that I was leading. What he did do, he changed the inside of my heart. First, Jesus himself said, first cleanse the inside of the cup, then the outside will become clean. And that's what he did in my life. He cleansed the inside of the cup, and gradually, it was a gradual process, the outside of my life changed. But the first thing I noticed was the amount of problems that swept through my life, which were incredible, and some of them very severe. And fairly soon I learned that the reason for this was that the Lord was teaching me stickability. So, judging by some of the emails I've received by so many, you also want to know the kind of experience that John had on the Isle of Patmos. So my encouragement to you is, no matter what you're going through right now, no matter how many difficulties, stick them out. Go through with Jesus. Trust him. He will never let you down. Sometimes it feels that he's not there. Remember King David saying, the hems are like brass. What he meant was he was praying and he was getting no answer. One of my favourite stories is the Syrophoenician woman, I think it was, that came to Jesus and asked for something from him. And you get those beautiful words. And he answered her not a word. I love that one. And he answered her not a word. Have you ever been in that circumstance or situation where you've cried out to God, help me, Lord, help me? And he answers you not a word. That's when you've got to learn stickability. Just like John on Patmos, that went through, must have been a hell hole of a place. But he stuck it out, and he was able to say, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. And just like the Syrophoenician woman that pressed through and received what she was asking from the Lord. In fact, he commended her and said, woman, great is your faith. Great is your faith. So if you want those kind of experiences, if you want to see the rescue of God in your life, stick it out. Keep going. Don't quit. It's the quitter that causes the problem. God doesn't cause the problem. God doesn't let anybody down. It's the quitter that lets God down. He puts himself in a position where God just cannot help him. Don't be like that. Be one of these people that say, though he slay me, Job said. That's a tough one. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. You know, sometimes we have to go through that experience. So my word for this week is, don't quit. Keep going on. Just like he came to John on Patmos, so he will come to you. Just like he gave the Syrophoenician woman what she was crying out for, he will give to you. Just don't quit. Keep going on. Press on no matter what, and he will come. Have a wonderful week, folks. God bless you all. See you again. Bye for now.